do the remarks on behalf of the Batemlete who was not able to come here this morning to be with us. So I will certainly do that briefly and allow the session to continue thereafter. I'm sure all of us, you know who I am. My name hasn't changed since the last time I introduced myself. Specifically in the SACU family, we have a program that has been running for years. I'm the coordinator for Lesotho. And let me welcome also colleagues from the Secretariat who are here with us this morning. They will do a round of introductions. I will allow them to introduce themselves and to also introduce ourselves. So basically this is a 3-day session that we are having, and the session really is about bringing us as customs officers, bringing the traders, bringing other government agencies into one platform where we can actually talk, understand what economic operators are all about. And SACU, the Secretariat, together with the member states, they have engaged in an approach where they're saying, let us have our operators having seamless operations for them to actually go through the border. Let us make sure that we heighten compliance. Let us make sure that safety and security are also a priority for our operators as they go through our borders. So they are doing that through what is called Authorised economic operators. This is what the session is about, is for us to actually talk as customs today. Tomorrow we'll bring on board government agencies, and the last day it will be almost everyone in the same room, where we'll be talking about the issues of government, of authorized economic operators. You will recall, some of you colleagues, that actually this project started as what we called a preferred trader. It since evolved. The region agreed that we need to perhaps put this program to a higher level, where we are not only looking at compliance. We have to look at safety, we have to look at security. This is why now we have to heighten it to authorized economic operators. So we'll be spending today here talking. There will be presenters taking us through what the program is all about, what it entails. We will bring it closer to home and say, what have we done in Lesotho? What is our program here in Lesotho regarding authorized economic operators? Deliver it on all those issues, and we'll end our day perhaps towards lunchtime today. So you are welcome for this session. Let's feel free, let's engage, let's make sure that we actually pave way for tomorrow. We also are paving way for day 3, which is Thursday, where we'll be in the same room with everybody else. Thank you, and let's enjoy the rest of the day.
Everyone who's present here. My name is Maggie Tladi. I'm the Deputy Director for Trade Facilitation at the SACU Secretariat, and I'm excited to be in Lesotho finally. To put the names to the faces, and also we were talking a lot virtually, but now at least we have the opportunity to see each other face to face, and we hope for a very positive outcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Good morning. Good morning to the Commissioner, and good morning to all of the colleagues that are here. My name is Pelisa Makyumza. I'm actually one of the experts in the region for AEO specifically. I normally work with Mema Basiya, Mama Kuala, and others for AEO, but I'm here under the auspices of SACU now as representing SARS as a champion for AEO program. So I'm really quite excited as well to meet all of you, and I'm sure that we'll be able to achieve the desired outcomes. Thank you so much.
Each SACU member state is at, and after that we'll talk to the future SACU Regional AEO Programme, which includes compliance, safety and security, and of course the implementation plan for that specific program. So it's not only SACU member states that are partaking, all the WCO countries are actually partaking into this program, although not all of them are implementing. So far we have more than 80 mutual recognition arrangements, which is also an instrument of an AEO program. We'll talk about it more in detail later. And we have, of course, about more than 80 operational AEO programs worldwide. So we are on track as the SACU region to follow best practice. And thanks to the heads of customs as well for prioritizing this as a flagship project for us in SACU. Globally, that's where the vision of an AEO program is internationally. And then the criteria for businesses to join this AEO program is that they have to be compliant with the customs laws, and they should be able to keep records. They must be financially solvent, and they should also have competence in customs. They have to know at least what is the laws that we regulate import, export, cross-border movements. And of course, there must be
Criteria, yes, we will adopt and accept and adhere to the requirements of the safe framework of standards. However, we need to make sure that the program is inclusive, the criteria is inclusive. It speaks to the requirements of small, micro, medium enterprises. I think of the whole, the acronym SMME. So we need to make sure that we are able to cater to different business modes. So the criteria that as is right now, it is sufficient because it meets international standards. But what it requires that as customs, we need to be flexible to different business models that are out there. Because right now you can go to any business, you will see it is not 100% the same with another one. Am I correct? So it means we have to be flexible in how we do our implementation, in how we adopt the criteria, and in how we validate certain aspects. So that is the first thing, is the inclusion of the small, micro, medium enterprises, is the inclusion of women-led enterprises, and any other different business models that are out there when we are actually testing compliance levels and safety and security levels. Then when we're looking at the concept of the authorized economic operator, really it is a trade facilitation initiative. And in order for it to work, it cannot just be a customs thing. It has to be customs as well as other governmental agencies. So we're then saying, if you look at the concept in itself, Article 7.7 of the Trade Facilitation Agreement, it will list the criteria as the one that makes
morning, everybody. Divisional Matombo. Kisebeta the Commissioner of Client Services. The Karamel Homemaking Hafe and SACU Heads of Customs. Let me welcome you today to a very exciting engagement session where we are going to talk about important issues that our visitors from SACU have traveled all the way from Namibia to be with us today, so that we could understand what we're talking about when we talk to the issues of authorized economic operator. As a region, you know, we aspire for many things that are intended mainly to improve. You know, we are 5 member countries, Lesotho, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Eswatini. We have been working together, delivering many other programs which are beneficial to our countries, especially our socio-economic environment. But today, we want to have an engagement with you, particularly because we want to partner with you as SACU in order for us to be effective in this program that we are rolling out. The engagements that we are going to have today will have various presentations from SACU, from Revenue Services Lesotho, indicating what the program is all about, indicating where we stand from international footing, and so many other things in terms of what we have done as Lesotho in delivering on this program and what we continue to do. But mostly, what opportunities are there to work together. I'm happy I can tell you, Maggie and the team, that many faces I see today, they are my colleagues from the Lesotho border management services, where we are undertaking a coordinated border management program. But also, under that program, you will find what we call heads of border agencies, where we do a lot of work together to improve our efficiencies at the border, to ensure that all the stakeholders, we try to do our best to improve our image as a country, from trade facilitation, management of security issues, movement of people and goods, medicine, many other things that we know they come in and out of the country. So today, to my colleagues, we are going to talk to you about an authorized economic operator program. This is basically a program that recognizes the importance or the ability of the traders to include within their supply chain some security aspects, management of risk, but mostly also compliance with the customs procedures. Now, this program accredits traders who will show their ability to meet this criteria. It will be explained to you how this is done. The importance of this program: it enables, I'm looking at the screen, I see my secrets. Please close the screen. So, sorry about that. So, we're going to show it later today to talk to Maseru about the program. So, these are some of the things that I will be talking about. So, the program really indicates that if you are an authorized economic operator, and certified and duly accredited. Within these 5 countries, if we have an accredited trader in Lesotho and they are trading in South Africa, they are trading in Botswana, Swaziland, all the 5 member countries, they will be recognized and they will be given sort of speedy processes from a customs point of view in terms of their clearance of goods to make sure that they are able to reach their shelves within their businesses as quickly as possible. This will enable them to effectively manage their businesses well, and obviously, which makes us happy as the Revenue Authority, and obviously our Minister of Finance, secure the revenue. But most importantly, from a trader's perspective, it is sort of gives them a gold badge, if I may say. It gives them an assurance which, when the suppliers see them, they see that these are responsible creditors, these are respected from a trading perspective, and I think it will earn a good relations with their suppliers. Because this program, if I may explain further, it is not giving the traders a handout. It is a program that is based on your ability to comply. So we will continue to test your compliance so that you maintain the status at that high accredited status. That is most important. It should not be seen as bringing in the players within the authorized economic operator, and then it means that all the other important rules are not going to apply. They will continuously apply, but we find the easiest ways in which we can streamline the custom processes and procedures. But we have invited you today because we realized that in order for this to benefit our traders fully, it is important that all the government agencies come on board. Because my colleague here next to me, she's from health. If I say I'm facilitating someone from a customs perspective, but she still has 100 things to be done at the border, this obviously will not work. So we need to find a way in which we can build this program together and bring you on board. And I'm happy because we are really doing a lot of work together to ensure that facilitation at the borders is done, and I would imagine this is going to be a very important conversation to you. Lastly, as the African market, we have an opportunity also for our traders to take advantage of the African free trade continental area. And in that way, we can use this as the SACU members to either have bilateral engagements where we can sign agreements for purposes of recognizing our accredited traders, or we can do it as a block, as the SACU block. In that way, we can efficiently facilitate the tapping into this new market and ensure that we duly grow our African market and economies and through this program. So there's a lot that we can achieve in this program. I wish you will enjoy the discussions today because it's really going to be a mind opener. It's going to be an important opportunity also for you to provide input and indicate whether from the SACU perspective or whether from the RSL perspective, if there are any further improvements that we can do. We will share with you also some of the milestones we have achieved so far as RSL in the program. But we also want to hear what kind of frustrations you are having so that we can be mindful of that as we are building the program in order for us to benefit as a country. So I wish you well. Let's enjoy the discussion today. I believe it's going to be worthwhile. Thank you.
It is an international standard, or I would say an initiative of the World Customs Organization. As you are aware, maybe, that even Revenue Service Lesotho is a member of the World Customs Organization, and Lesotho is a country as well, by extension, is signatory to the WCO convention as well. So it is an international organization that sets standards for customs, and of course this is also at a regional level within SACU. We are endorsing or even implementing standards that are set by the World Customs Organization. And what is even more important,
Singing my tenor because I wanted to contribute to the beautiful melody. And when I brought in my tenor, the melody was perfect. So I think that's exactly what we want to talk about. We want to say the music that customs is doing, the music that health, the music that all these different entities, all these different government agencies. Now, if you bring the beautiful voices together, are we not going to bring about beautiful harmony like we experienced today in terms of trade facilitation? So that is what we're doing today, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you, Maggie. You've taken us through the program, the Authorized Economic Operator concept. So mine is just to talk more to the future, what it is that we're expecting to do when it comes to, ensuring that the program actually reaches the impact that it's supposed to reach from a national perspective, from also an economic perspective. We've spoken a lot about the criteria and we want it to be inclusive, but I want to touch base on these two blocks that are talking to border intervention as well as interagency AEO. High level, just for you to understand the bigger picture. But now when we're coming back at an operational level to say how would this work, so basically the idea is we need to identify what is the criteria for compliance, what is the criteria from all the agencies, and find a way to harmonize that as a requirement, because the idea is we'll have single application, so whoever wants to participate in this or an operator would submit one application, and then because we would have a single criteria, would process that application, we would have one authorization and one response, and ensure that we provide benefits for those clients that would have tested for compliance purposes. This actually requires a lot of resources, of course. There's a concept, I'm sure you are thinking now, but how would this work practically? Yes, we would need to have a working group.
We are moving to Botswana, we are moving to other regional competitors because of the challenges that we get at the border. So we think this initiative will support the country a lot in terms of retention and even expansion and even enticing them to reinvest in the country. So I'm trying to see what role the LNDC can play. So in our trade support initiatives within LNDC, some of the things that we do is just supporting them with trade enhancing services, say securing of industry certification, maybe listing them on e-commerce platforms, for example. But normally before we do that, we try to create awareness. We educate them on what tools they need, what initiatives or activities they need to apply or adopt in their day-to-day work. So with this one already, I think one of the things that we could do in collaboration with the RSL, of course, would be a creation of awareness with the industrialists. LNDC works directly with the industrialists from time to time. When there's a new opportunity like the ACFTA, with any implementation, maybe the AEO EPA implementation, if we have any initiative or activities that we think will support them, we go out and create awareness. So I think together, if we could meet with Member Makwala or other RSL team, we could maybe go out there. And first, that is the starting point, creating awareness about these opportunities. It is our duty to ensure that we tell them the related benefits that are directed at them as the individual investors, so that when they go back to their individual firms, then they can start adopting such. So we then now have to allow them some time to go back and adopt them and apply them, so that if I want to believe there will be some sort of an audit, yes, for them to come back and say, now we want to audit whether now you qualify. So really, let me stop here and just say, let's start by creating awareness, educating the private sector on this. LNDC, we are willing to come on board to do it.
To add up onto what Maseru has just said, one of my responsibilities is really to ensure that the companies that we go out attract, and for them to establish in Lesotho, we retain them here and we ensure that they expand. As she just rightly said, most of the inquiries that get to my desk are normally trade facilitation kind of challenges that they're experiencing at the borders. And I'm particularly interested in knowing if those my clients will be in the midst of the private sector that will be invited for this kind of meetings, as I understand that there is going to be an engagement with the private sector. So I'm particularly interested if those exporters will be invited. And the other thing is, I've seen that we have like 10 of them that have been accredited, and I just want to, maybe I'll ask this with Makwala, but it's really a very important initiative that we are embarking on, that I think it will really give us a mile with regard to business, doing business in Lesotho. Because as an investment promotion agency, one of the things that we need to do is when you go out to promote investments, we know where we stand in terms of our doing business. So, Kalaba will know that.
Commitment from LNDC. I wanted to share with you what we were discussing yesterday, and possibly it could also be a takeaway for LNDC. The main focus of the program will reflect in that it talks to partners in the trading community, partners from country to country. And we realized that as a country, we are largely a consumer economy. And the value of an AEO program to a consumer economy is not really going to provide the important socio-economic benefits that we need. And we kept thinking, perhaps it's high time we take a direction as a country, and obviously through the support and leadership of the LNDC and the Ministry of Trade, to change the status quo. We are not even partners with South Africa as our only neighbor. So for our traders to only be accredited just to bring goods home, guess whose economy is growing? You understand? Not ours, but the exporters' economy from wherever the goods are coming from. We have been watching with interest as the RSL, and also probably through the contribution that we make You have seen the program we usually finance on an annual basis, the Bacha Entrepreneurship Program with BEDCO. The amount of innovation, the amount of appetite for business out there is really high. And we are also looking at the fact that the African market is really open to us, is the biggest opportunity and chance we have through the AFCFTA, particularly because the AFCFTA already considers the importance of this AEO program. So the challenge to us now as a country is for us to rise up to the challenge, because having authorized economic operators who are just merely consumers, it's not going to take this country to where it's supposed to go. So we would like you to help us to take advantage of the market, to help our traders penetrate this African market, and then really truly benefit from what this AEO program is. And Maggie mentioned earlier in her presentation that there's also an opportunity to sign an MRA, mutual recognition agreement, with other regional counterparts within Africa. That could actually fast track our ability to tap into the market. But the AEO is not the first step. For us as the country to benefit, the first step is actually to be the main players in the market. So that's the biggest plea we are making. I hope we can be able to meet each other halfway somewhere. Thank you.
Presentation, and we have learned a lot from what we saw on the presentation, and I can see that the world is talking one thing but in different languages, and even from the different sectors. But now my interest is now to ask you as to, based on the experiences we are working with countries, to say that what has been the challenge with these other countries. I can see that the uptake of this idea, or maybe from the business people, has been very low in these other countries. So I'm interested in knowing what could be the reasons for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of factors that influence the uptake of the program. There's many variables. It can range from, let's look at how long has the program been. So, for instance, in my country, if I can make an example there, we started piloting the process from 2009 up until we started implementing only in 2017. So we started officially launching in 2017, but the pilot started a while ago. So in that process, we might have also lost some from joining. There are many other factors as well, especially from a single government AEO concept, when you're looking at what are the different risk management strategies that are there, or risk management mechanisms that are out there, and how do you harmonize them? The systems that they have, how do you cooperate? So those are some of the things that can influence the outcome from a single government AEO. But from a national, just a customs to customs, it can also look at how long does it also take for the traders themselves to finish the process of complying. So normally what we say is that an authorized economic operator concept is actually a voluntary in nature. So I can go to client A and say, this is my program, I'm selling it to you, but you have to meet this criteria. Then they will say, okay, it looks good, but please give me 6 months to try and rectify some of the things. then that also has an impact. So you find that other countries have got maybe 5 participants, but they've got 40 in the pipeline that they're still working with. So those are the various factors that you find in the process. Some have already undertaken, because normally we would also partner up with the private sector, and we help them to share the message. We help them to, especially the consultants. They will also they will also validate the client. They will also ask the client to validate themselves. So some other traders, they actually undergo a process of testing the criteria against themselves. By the time we go as customs, they are saying, this is what we have found, we audited ourselves, these are some of the risks, and then we'll test, and then we see that indeed this client has actually met the criteria. So it becomes quicker in that manner. However, others will place total reliance on customs. They will then say, okay, I do want to do this, but I'm still trying to push my numbers here for manufacturing. Give me a year, come back to me after a year whilst I'm growing my business. So those are all kind of factors that you will find in play, but I've never seen any country that will say, yeah, we've got 5, but we don't have any in the pipeline. There's always some in the pipeline, but it will depend on them how ready are they to join the program.
On to what my colleague is saying, we also noticed that we need to intensify in terms of resources for all our countries, as SACU. So this financial year we will use it to at least be able to raise resources that are required, because as you can understand, it involves a lot of other moving parts that requires additional resources from what all the national budgets may be able to absorb. So even now that we are bringing other government or partner government agencies, there will be financial implications there. And you may find that within your own spaces, you have not budgeted maybe for that. We will have to find ways of, getting resources so that whatever activities that we want to undertake, be it, going out there and selling the program, creating awareness, at least there's some funds, even at the regional level, that can be able to be used by our member states to do the work. So, but what consoles us as a region is that we know that all elements are in place. Where there are gaps, those are gaps that are can be filled easily once we have the resources. Thank you.
I'll give the overview of our context, the purpose and how we're set up and what value we get from the AEO. And Melvasi was going to go into the requirements and the specific benefits of our current program. Now, when we talk about the AEO, taking from the cue of the discussion earlier in terms of how we are based from the policy level, which is the government level, you would remember that the National Development Strategy actually talks to export-led growth. And this has been going into the National Trade Strategy 2021-2025, which is where we built this synergy with the AEO to say, at the national level, we are guided to at least by 2025 to have improved within the SACU framework.
All over the world, trade is the lifeblood of economies and economic growth. And without trade, economic stagnation takes hold. As countries and as agencies within countries, it behoves us to ensure that we facilitate trade into and out of our countries. The Kingdom of Lesotho is a signatory to the World Customs Organization and its statutes, as well as to the World Trade Organization and its Trade Facilitation Agreement. The awareness session today for the AEO is a product of a landmark initiative of the WCO aimed at advancing the noble aims of Article 7.7 and Article 8.0 of the TFA by ensuring that trade across borders for clients who are exemplary in compliance, who are competent in customs procedures, who have adequate financial solvency, and who also ensure safety and security in their import and export activities, enjoy unique benefits upon registering for the AEO program. These benefits include expedited clearance of goods, seamless supply chains, reduced cost of doing business, as well as predictability in trading across borders, amongst others. The AEO program is a natural result of the modernization efforts of customs organizations across SACU, the SADC region, our African continent, and indeed the world at large, as we become more digitally driven and leverage the power of technology to simplify and harmonize border procedures for our customers. A pivotal factor for the successful implementation of the AEO program in any country is collaborative and synergistic engagement of border agencies through coordinated border management in order to reduce duplicative activities, undue delays, as well as disjointed operations without compromising on the compliance, public safety and security aspects that we are tasked with. It is our hope that this, in the context of the Kingdom of Lesotho, will be a noble ambition pursued with zeal and with vigor. I am reliably informed that acquiring AEO status in Lesotho has notable benefits of opening doors for seamless trade in neighboring countries and other regions of the world through the mutual recognition agreements aimed at reciprocating AEO status amongst customs organizations. So, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I express the hope that this session here today will be a catalyst for consolidation of the Lesotho AEO program under SACU, and I'm confident that our engagement today through the moderated discussions, particularly with the private sector, will infuse great interest and desire for our local businesses to be enrolled on the program. I wish us a very, very, very productive day today. I welcome you all, and thank you very much for being here.
Let me really indicate how much of a pleasure it is for me to be here. I'm sure you don't doubt that. It's really a great pleasure for me to be with you this morning in Lesotho to really promote our AEO program and have an engagement with the Lesotho private sector under the theme experience a hassle-free trade as an authorized economic operator. And indeed, let me right at the beginning start by thanking the RSL, for playing a critical part in facilitating this conversation. We have, as the SACU Secretariat, been moving around the region. We have done a similar program in Namibia. We have then moved on to Eswatini, where in Namibia, of course, we did it with the revenue agency there, NAMRA. We then moved to the Eswatini Revenue Services, where we then held a similar event recently with the private sector. We will be moving to Botswana in the next week or so for the same event. We're here in Lesotho today. In fact, this week, because today is really a culmination of an event that started 2 days ago with much more deeper engagement with the private sector to try and see how we can promote this event. All this will culminate with a major event for the entire region to be held at the end of May in Johannesburg, South Africa, wherein we shall now be hopefully launching the program, the AEO program, Accredited Economic Operator Program, on a much broader, scale. And I'll say perhaps later about what that larger scale involves. So, the Accredited Economic Operator, I think it's important just to set the stage and say what it is and what it is not. Most importantly, perhaps let me start by contextualizing everything by sharing with you the Southern African Customs Union strategy that was approved by the Council of Ministers in June 2022, last year. This strategy really seeks to achieve goals, and this are about five goals. At the very top of that is industrialization for the entire SACU region. Industrialization achieved through export promotion and investment promotion. And this really underpins everything. But related to that is the whole idea of ensuring that we also achieve the goal of trade facilitation and logistics. So trade facilitation and logistics, a very important pillar under that strategy. And it is within that second pillar that we actually fit this AEO program as a signature event intended to achieve speed in trading across our borders in the region, and predictability in trading across our borders, and reduced cost of undertaking that trade across our borders. And as you can imagine, the two tie in, because we're not doing trade facilitation and logistics for its own sake. There is an underlying aim and end that we seek to achieve, and that is to make sure that our businesses within SACU, basically we improve their productivity and competitiveness. We have to improve the productivity and competitiveness of our business, because the third pillar talks about leveraging on the AFCFTA opportunity. The Africa Free Trade Area agreement that I'm sure we all know about, which seeks to make sure that Africa improves the level of intra-Africa trade. Currently you'll be aware that as Africa, we have a very untenable feature of us actually trading more with the rest of the world than with ourselves. The level of intra-Africa trade is so low, in the teens. We would rather trade with the US, we'd rather trade with Europe, we'd rather trade with Asia and South America than trade with ourselves. And this is one of the problems that through the AFCFTA we are seeking to deal with once and for all, to make sure that we improve that connectivity of our economies, we improve that level of trade in our economies. And you will be aware that the recent economic challenges that we have experienced, starting of course with the COVID pandemic, and now the war between Ukraine and Russia, have actually highlighted our exposure as Africa, especially towards dependence on other parts of the world for essentials such as food security. We saw food prices spike simply because Ukraine is the granary of the world, but most notably of Africa, where we depend a lot on getting wheat and other food products from that part of the world. And immediately that underscored our dependence even on something as essential as food. And it's often said, if you can't feed yourself, you can't even claim to be sovereign. Because you can't feed yourself. And this then underscored the importance of us as Africa on focusing on that element of seeking and achieving independence and security on food production. But it's only when we can produce it and produce it with high levels of productivity that we can start achieving that independence. And it's only then, if we can, after producing it, trade it amongst ourselves, that we can say we are independent as Africa. So what this challenge of the geopolitical situation that we're seeing unfold in Europe has brought is that realization of our vulnerability, but it has also led to a lot of other economic challenges. The spike in inflation that we are seeing around the world now, which is leading to central banks having to hike interest rates, and we actually are living in times that are no different from perhaps the 70s, when we had oil embargo and inflation was out of order, and that invariably leads to challenges in terms of the standard of living. And countries like ours that are struggling for development keep diverging more and more and more from the developed world. The gap is opening more and more and more. And therefore the SACU countries are saying through that, those three pillars I've discussed already, the idea of industrializing our region, export promotion, investment promotion, but combined with enabling trade facilitation and logistics in our region in order to then ultimately leverage on that AFCFTA opportunity, are all saying, let us make sure that we have a leg up when it comes to competing with the rest of Africa under that AFCFTA opportunity. I've been making an analogy of, the football tournament, the Africa-wide football tournament that I'm sure you're aware of, the All Africa, what is it called? The CAF. Yeah. The tournament where states compete and we end up with a few countries going to the tournament. Lesotho was competing, I know. We did not qualify. Namibia has qualified to go and compete there. Eswatini, I think, missed it a bit. But hey, SACU will be represented. I think South Africa is also going. South Africa is also going. But here's the analogy I was using. AFCFTA, this Africa-wide continental free trade area that we're trying to promote, is no different. It is actually the sort of continent-wide contest for businesses, so that you now have SACU as a region, as a unit, saying we want to make sure that we send our businesses to go and compete in the rest of Africa and win business deals and win business contracts and expand our business into East Africa, expand our businesses into Central Africa, into North Africa and West Africa, and as a result industrialize the SACU region and become first world as a result. That is the thinking. And I can tell you, East African community is not sitting on their laurels. They are also having the same conversation. How do they launch into the SADC, into the SACU region? How do they launch into West, North, and East Africa, and rather the rest of Central Africa, and also conquer? So it is a contest. And it's only through us as perhaps business in SACU, us as facilitators of business in SACU, through customs administrations and other business facilitation agencies, that we can make sure that we become, in fact, the enablers of SACU being the winners of that trophy under the AFCFTA opportunity. It's only through us deliberately realizing that it takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of focus and implementation and execution of our plans. And this AEO program falling within that pillar of trade facilitation and logistics, is intended to enable SACU businesses, when they go and compete with others from other regions, to have their leg up. How? If it takes forever for your product moving from SACU to end up in Kenya, because our business processes, the soft infrastructure, the customs processes themselves, are not conducive for business growth, are not conducive for that facilitation, then your product is going to land in West Africa, East Africa, perhaps already with poor quality. Imagine horticulture products that a lot of countries in the region are beginning to talk about, or meat products being produced by Botswana and Namibia, and their sensitivity to handling, and their sensitivity to perhaps, you know, diseases and all those, and the need for us to then make sure that we have the soft infrastructure to enable that seamless trade. But it's also not just an element of soft infrastructure, but also an element of hard infrastructure. And here we're talking about the one-stop border infrastructures, the rail networks, the road networks, the airport networks, so that we don't end up with a situation that we currently have in logistics management in Africa, where you find, one, we trade largely with minerals, but it's mainly from pit to port. If you look at the pattern of our trade, it's always pit to port, i.e. we go to a pit, a mine, we extract the mineral. After we extract it, what we do with it in its raw form, we take it to the port. Out of Africa it goes. To manufacture iPads, to manufacture iPhones, microphones, cameras, which are then shipped back to us as final consumers. That is what happens. So our logistics, if you look at it, our logistics frameworks are always from pit to port, or at least from factory to port. And it's in raw form in most cases, low value added type of products that we produce. The idea is to change our logistics network to ensure that we are not from pit to port, but rather from the pit, in order to then take it to another African country across for value addition there, and to another country for further value addition, and the third country for further value addition. So we are talking within industrialization the idea of regional value chains, where you can have an industry spread all over SACU, taking advantage of the various know-how potential that you find in the various countries, so that the manufacturer of vehicles will have to take advantage of Lesotho's know-how and comparative advantage in textiles manufacturing, so that the seats of the vehicles will be manufactured in Lesotho. Perhaps Botswana can do the harnesses in terms of their own advantages, and then South Africa can make the body of the car, but it's a regional value chain. The vehicle is brought together at one point, but it requires us to have both soft infrastructure in terms of these processes, such as the AEO program itself, and also the hard infrastructure. Because it's one thing to say we have done an AEO, we have actually agreed on how to trade, there is a framework, internet, IT systems are connected, but when the road is non-existent, or it's potholed all over the place, or there's no rail to facilitate even cheaper transportation and logistics in our region, or the airports are non-existent or non-operational to enable cargo handling, then the investment we've made in beautiful programs such as this one really will not be realized. So that is the idea of the SACU strategy. Of course, the fourth pillar under the SACU strategy talks about unified engagement with other regions, with SACU speaking in one voice, particularly in relation to negotiating trade agreements. You will know, as business people, that currently SACU has a number of business sort of trade agreements that have been signed and sealed with other regions of the world. There is the European Free Trade Area, EFTA, which is a number of countries in Europe that are not members of the European Union, such as Norway, we have Sweden, Finland, mainly your Scandinavian countries. There's an arrangement, there's a free trade area agreement that's been signed with SACU, and business in SACU should be aware of this agreement and take advantage of them and start exploring what it is that they can trade with that part of the world. I can tell you right now that Botswana and Namibia are sending tons and tons and tons of beef to these countries and trading with them. And they're even failing to even meet the quota allocation that they've been given there. And we're now negotiating with EFTA to increase those quotas in order to enable even more trade. I'm just picking that one, picking that region. We have a trade agreement with Mercosur, the Southern African states, which also presents an opportunity for businesses to look at the opportunity there of exploiting some opportunities that are available under that agreement. We also are currently, in fact, negotiating with the UK. After the UK left EU, SACU, together with Mozambique, SACU, are on the one hand negotiating with the UK on the other hand, to try and make sure that there's a trade agreement with the UK to enable again trade with the UK under an agreed terms. These are agreements that SACU negotiates as one unit, as one entity, and once agreed, it means every business located within SACU can and should take advantage of the opportunities therein. Textiles in Lesotho have enjoyed a lot of benefit under the AGOA agreement, which is incidentally ending soon. Is it 2025? Yes. And there is talk of seeing how it can be renewed. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that we should realize the importance of productivity. We should realize the importance of productivity in terms of unlocking these opportunities, because once you have to start competing in that global space, you have to be a competitive business. Senior trade officials were in Namibia last week attending their meeting. This is SACU senior trade officials, to try and take stock of the global environment, the internal environment, and map the way forward for the coming year. And alongside that meeting, we took a tour and went to a company in Namibia. That is, the name is Midco actually. They actually export meat. They are the only African company that exports meat to the US. And you'll know that the rigorous sort of requirements for accessing markets like that means that you really have to be competitive, you really have to be productive, you really have to make sure that you have all the elements that make you to access such a market. You have to have, for example, very, very world-class disease control. You have to have a proper supply chain of this cattle, so that you can, as they say, have a full picture from farm to fork of the animal. We have to know what animal this is, where was it born, how was it fed, what diseases it had, what age it has when it's slaughtered, and the entire process even after it is slaughtered, the handling of the carcass, the meat, so that you then start talking about your cold chain, your cold storage supply chain, until it gets to market in the US. And this is the productivity I'm talking about. But key in the whole process is then how customs processes across the borders facilitate that seamless trade. And this AEO program, as we are indicating today, is really part of that, and it is aimed at making sure that there is the speed of trade, least cost, as I indicated, but more importantly, predictability, so that you know what to expect every time you go to a border post. That is very, very important. It's not even so much about intensity, but it's about that element of consistency, because business requires consistency, predictability, especially if you are handling very sensitive products such as horticulture or meat products, or anything really, because turnaround times are very important in business. You could lose an order because you constantly fail to deliver, and you fail to deliver because your customs administration doesn't allow you to basically meet your turnaround time targets. But the AEO program actually says, let us evaluate you as a business and see your conduct first and foremost in terms of compliance. Because it has two components. There's compliance and then there's safety and security. Compliance talks about your compliance sort of record. It talks about behavior, so that you are basically rewarded for demonstrable compliance to the requirements at the border. You always declare properly, you always pay the dues that you're supposed to pay, where you're supposed to pay, and you have a track record of doing so. But more importantly also, you do have systems and processes that enable there to be an audit trail that will allow the customs administration, when they undertake maybe a post-clearance audit, once in a while, and I underline that one of the benefits of being an accredited economic operator is that you are not constantly going to endure audits, which we know is a cost to business, to have to dedicate time and resources for the RSL, or auditors to come and audit you. The moment you are part of this program, it means you will then enjoy that element of not being audited constantly, because you would, one, have been assessed at the beginning, and you would have demonstrated that you have a business processes, systems that enable record keeping of the highest standard, that enable that audit trail. And with that audit trail, then the revenue agency gives you the accreditation. And once you have that accreditation, it's a VIP treatment really. You are given a red carpet treatment every time you come to the border, you cross, and if there is any need for any sort of investigations or checking of your cargo, it may even happen at your premises rather than right there at the border. Now we know that for business, time is money. Time is money. The moment you save that time, that's money in your pocket. And there is also an element of you enjoying even further benefits in terms of expedited VAT refunds, so that again you benefit from cash flow that is more predictable. This is how then we are beginning to give you a leg up as a business. We're making you more competitive, we're making you more productive, so that you can then compete with a Kenyan business that is essentially producing the same thing, and then you can go into Africa and conquer as a SACU business. So what then we are doing as SACU, working together with the revenue authorities in the region, and have been doing it for quite a while, is to try and move away from where we have been, which is the preferred trader programs, we've been calling them, in the member states, where each country has this program of accrediting a few accredited business. We currently have 176, I'm told, accredited economic operators in the entire SACU region. South Africa has the most because of its size, 161 of those. Lesotho comes second. You have to be proud of yourselves, with 10 accredited economic operators. Yeah, I can give it an applause. Namibia has 1. We launched this program in Namibia the other day, and even during the event we had 2 pledging to join, and I think they are now undertaking a process of evaluation, and sooner or later Namibia will be having 3. But the Commissioner General was telling me that he aims to have at least 50 before the end of the year. So very, very much ambitious. Botswana has 3. We're going there. Hopefully there will also be adding more to them. Eswatini has 2, and we were there too, and when we were there, we had some pledges to join. As I indicated, we have the compliance arm of this program and the safety and security arm. South Africa is the only one that has one accredited safety and security sort of business that is accredited. Declared is in the container, and what actually is in the container is a very, very big issue around the world. Issues of terrorism, issues of prohibited goods are very, very fundamental. So you have a situation where some traders are given accreditation that they are not just compliant, but they are also trusted in terms of safety and security, so that their container, when it gets to any of the member states, is regarded as safe, and therefore whatever they claim to be inside the container is considered to be the truth. What we're working on, though, is to realize that it's one thing to have a system for a country, as I've indicated the numbers, but in order to add value to the entire AEO program, we need to start now realizing that we need to connect them. Because it is through that connection of the various AEO programs of the member states that we start improving the total value of the entire program. So that really the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts. And I've been making an example. If you think about your cell phone in your pocket right now, sitting in front of you, that cell phone is only as good as its ability to connect with other cell phones, isn't it? If none of us had cell phones and you are the only person who has a cell phone, what is the value of that cell phone? I mean, it's useless. It's just a stone. Nobody will ever call you. You'll never call anybody. But when one person also subscribes and has a cell phone, voila, the value of that phone is a little bit higher because it enables you to talk with one person. But imagine if 10 more join, 100 more, 1,000 more. You now start building what? A network. Which means each cell phone in that network derives its value from the fact that it is connected to others. It is useless on its own. In the same analogy, your AEO program as a country, valuable as it is, can actually be enhanced in terms of value by connecting it to the AEO program across the border in South Africa. So that your business is not only accredited in Lesotho, but also in South Africa. It's RSL now working with SARS. In fact, take it further to say if it's accredited in Lesotho, it's automatically accredited in Eswatini, in Namibia, in Botswana, and vice versa, so that a business from Botswana accredited there by BURS can actually come here and just enjoy the same VIP treatment in Lesotho. The moment we do that, we're now beginning to build a network with various nodes. And the moment we do that, we're beginning to, in fact, make SACU businesses very competitive. In fact, we are now opening the door for regional value chains. It becomes easy then to say to a vehicle manufacturer, indeed, I can, with my accreditation in South Africa, open maybe the manufacturing of some parts of this vehicle in Lesotho, because I know that when I take my raw materials there, with my accreditation issued by SARS, RSL will give me the same seamless trading ability to get into Lesotho and out of Lesotho. And I'll make other parts in Eswatini. It becomes very easy for maybe a beef manufacturer, a slaughterhouse such as Midco in Namibia to say, you know what, as I make this meat, I have hides, I have leather, I can take these things to Lesotho where they have know-how of textiles and let them make leather jackets, leather bags, and leather products. Why? Because now I'm opening a business that is more SACU-wide rather than one confined within Namibia, because there is a framework that allows that. Now this framework is enabled, or this connectivity is enabled by mutual recognition agreements that are signed by the revenue agencies in the region. So that actually RSL has signed a mutual recognition agreement with SARS. This mutual recognition agreement basically says, I as RSL do hereby undertake to you SARS to recognize the businesses you have accredited under the AEO program and give them exactly the same status you would give them in Lesotho. And SARS says the same thing. So you are a VIP not just in Lesotho, but you are a VIP everywhere in SACU, by virtue of RSL accrediting you. And the same thing happens between Namibia and Botswana, Eswatini and South Africa. As we speak, mutual recognition agreements have been signed between Lesotho and South Africa, RSL and SARS, and then Eswatini Revenue Service is signed with South African Revenue Service. There is a mutual recognition agreement there. And there are others, Namibia, Botswana, and Namibia, Botswana with South Africa being finalized. And the idea is that once we have that network of MRAs, mutual recognition agreements, then we have a network of connectivity of this individual AEO programs. And then this will be actually launched at the end of May, where the signing will happen by all the commissioners generals and customs, commissioners of customs, and the business, the private sector will be there to witness this. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the program, this is the idea of the program, this is how it fits into the bigger picture. It is not meant to be an end in itself. At the end of the day, we're trying to industrialize SACU. We're trying to basically give SACU businesses a leg up when they go to that continental tournament of the Africa Free Trade Agreement to make sure that we win. We can actually literally take advantage of the deficits that's developing. And I therefore really invite business in Lesotho to seize this opportunity and not be left behind. What is clear is that Lesotho is the only least developed country within the SACU region. Yes, I said it. Yes. We are the only LDC within the SACU region as Lesotho. And there is a need for Lesotho to basically seize this opportunity. Seize this opportunity because it really promises to become the final solution to our challenges in terms of economic growth and our challenges in terms of industrializing. And it is only through export promotion, through export-led growth, that we can do that. Why? Because Lesotho is a small economy, Namibia is a small economy, Eswatini is a small economy, Botswana is. And in fact, even by global standards, South Africa is a small economy. And it's only through connectivity again with the rest of Africa that we shall be launching growth. And the idea therefore is to build to develop even mutual recognition agreements between SACU and the East African community. That's the next phase. A mutual recognition agreement between SACU as a block of states with ECOWAS, the West African states, and the Central African states and North Africa, so that SACU businesses can go to East Africa, Rwanda, trade with Uganda, knowing very well that they enjoy the same treatment under the AEO program. So this is how it fits in, and I'm very happy really that we are here and would like to once again encourage you to approach the RSL and apply for membership, increase that number from 10, define a target for how many we want to have within whatever time period it is, and make sure that we become part of the SACU community in a real sense and derive the benefits that this program seeks to prevent. With those comments, let me thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Yalebu.
I'm deeply honored to be with you this morning for the SACU Authorized Economic Operator National Consultations, the Lesotho chapter. I've heard my colleague and good friend, Mr. Hasip, saying accredited. Maybe we can use them interchangeably, I suppose. Let me thank the SACU Secretariat and all our partners for collaborating with the government of Lesotho through the Revenue Service Lesotho to ensure that this consultation comes to fruition for the benefit of our private sector. I would also like to congratulate the teams on the ground for working tirelessly, as I am aware that the preceding meetings have successfully been completed or executed. I'm certain that everyone is pleased that COVID-19 restrictions are finally behind us, and we are now able to meet in person to discuss important trade-related issues which are critical for the revival of our economies. Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Lesotho strives to improve the business environment for private sector to grow and improve prospects for economic growth as well as employment creation. We have developed the National Trade Policy Framework and National Trade Strategy focusing on increasing domestic production, diversifying regional and internal markets, and increasing competitiveness of businesses in Lesotho. The business community is always looking for ways of moving their goods fast and easily at reduced cost. Trade facilitation is central in achieving these ambitions. To that effect, the National Trade Facilitation Committee was established to steer the National Trade Facilitation Agenda. Consequently, the implementation of the National Trade Facilitation Roadmap is in progress and has recorded successes, including the operationalization of the National Single Window, Phase 1 and Phase 2, which is underway, as well as piloting of the coordinated border management. You may all be aware that the Authorized Economic Operator Programme directly complements the WTO TFA in relation to expedited shipments. It is essential for curbing escalating costs. The Authorized Economic Operator is an excellent initiative. It is one of the flagship programs in the region to drive the trade and facilitation agenda. Its benefits are enormous, and studies have shown that this type of arrangement can improve customs clearance efficiency by a factor of 10% or more. This translates into substantial cost savings for private sector and efficient trade with SACU so that we can increase our competitive edge. This program, therefore, provides dynamism, improves competitiveness while trading across borders, especially for a landlord country as ours claim our share in the rapidly evolving global trading arena. The AEO program is implemented under the NTFC, this acronym, which provides a great platform for both government agencies and private sector to engage on a regular basis. Trade is at the core of development for any country, and it remains the lifeline for Lesotho to date. We have therefore, over the years, added our footprint in the flow of ideas, people, and goods and services by innovating our trade facilitation processes. As we focus on the importance of the AEO program, we must not lose sight of the bigger picture of the international trade facilitation programs. The Authorized Economic Operator is a facilitative program that enhances efficiencies in international trade to quicken and enhance trade competitiveness. It is for this reason that voluntary compliance is encouraged for economic operators to willingly offer to partners with customs and other regulatory agencies to manage risk associated with trade. This will therefore afford regulators an opportunity to do away with most of the stringent regulatory controls for meaningful participation in the global trade. Trade facilitation has emerged as an effective tool to mitigate the devastating effects of any disruptions on trade, simplifying and digitalizing formalities in international trade are key to eliminating cumbersome and costly border procedures which are prominent in developing countries. Regional trade facilitation mechanisms should be used strategically to boost existing and emerging trade arrangements, reduce costs to trade, and fuel inclusive growth. Such mechanisms can further facilitate market access, strengthen regional value chains, and boost regional economy as a whole. Whilst undertaking various reforms to implement the TFA in our respective countries, we should foster regional cooperation to tackle vulnerabilities related to regional value chains. Productively use a wealth of distinct experiences and institutional frameworks across countries for mutual learning and experience sharing, and continuously agree on a set of key measures where collective action can reduce the time and cost of trading across borders. Albeit the supply chain disruptions caused by devastations across the world due to the COVID-19 and further exacerbated by the Russian-Ukraine war, SACU has been working closely to ensure free flow of goods that are most needed within the region. That atmosphere should prevail with or without crisis. With improved levels of trade facilitation, SACU will become an attractive destination for foreign direct investment. Regional integration on all fronts cannot be overemphasized, as our economies are rapidly becoming more intertwined and independent to take advantage of opportunities derived from international trade and inward investment. Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remarks, I must indicate that the AEO arrangement will greatly benefit business, which will be successfully validated by any SACU country, as they will have reduced documentary and cargo inspections across all members countries. They can potentially enjoy additional benefits, including faster customs clearance, priority treatment if goods have been selected for inspection, and expedited clearance in the event of trade disruptions. Beyond this, there are some other areas of customs collaboration which would be of tremendous benefit to regions, such as aligning our respective customs processes to common standards and intensifying e-commerce, which is a fast-growing industry. These efforts will involve intense and close coordination, but I'm confident that we will make significant progress through the strong collaboration and partnership that underpin everything we do in SACU. I encourage the private sector to experience hassle-free trade as an authorized economic operator, and I would like to witness more companies enrolling in this program. We have been made aware that we have sort of broken the record. We have 10 of them. We need more. Let's engage this program. On that note, I wish you all a fruitful deliberation and implore all to play their part for a more integrated and prosperous future SACU. I thank you all for your attention.
Following the discussions of the morning part, the official one, a lot of my job has been done in terms of what AEO is, from the Executive Secretary's remarks, and from the WCO, also from the Minister himself. So it's just for me to provide the context of how this program works and what benefits we are offering, some of which they've already discussed. Now, we have been having a lot of questions as regards the program, as regards where it has worked and how it has worked, and whether the private sector did get any benefit from participating in the program. We tried to find some case studies for you to note and absorb and see if you would be interested as the call has been made for you to come on board and partner with us in the program. Now on the screen you will see the logo. That is the design that was developed. It was developed with the private sector involved and the other agencies, hence why the colors resonate our national flag. The AEO, when we looked at it, we looked at in alignment to the national trade strategy, which is aligned to our national development strategy basically. Now when you look at the strategy, the Ministry of Trade actually tries between 2021 is planning to improve and facilitate trade using the SACU framework itself. And I'll not go into the details what we have on the screen. I'll just highlight what the key focus is. One is compliance, improving compliance. The second one is minimizing the length of check at our borders and decreasing the time it takes to move across the cross-border services. Now, I'll go into what the program is so that at least you get to understand. Now, AEO, which is Authorized Economic Operator Program, is any company or any individual that is involved in the international movement of goods or cargo basically. This is defined from the WCO guidelines as the standard setting body for all customs administrations global-wide. Now it involves all the players from manufacturing to importers, exporters, and all the intermediaries that are involved in the supply chain of the goods from where they leave one destination to another. Now, we look at what the program provides for you basically, and what it is. It's just a strategy or a program that tries to inculcate a culture of partnership between us as the Customs Administration, Revenue Services Lesotho, and our trading community and our government agencies. It's the same principle in SARS, it's the same principle even in SACU. As they spearhead our industrialization journey. Now, the structure involves sharing of information for purposes of managing controls as the goods move between us and improving accountabilities between each other. It further maintains certain tools that will ensure that whatever we share, the data thereof is accurate. Otherwise, we will not be able to facilitate any of your transactions if the data that we get from you seems to be resonating with something else that you would be saying it is. So the data has to be accurate and has to have some audit trail, or in fact it has to have, not some, it has to have audit trail. And that will help us to be able to provide get a snapshot of where there are gaps and where we need to get involved in order to make you aware and provide the necessary knowledge and skills and training and awareness and minimize risks of any violations in the import and export controls. Now, to get into the correct program, there's a criteria that has been defined. I've summarized it here. I think at some beyond this engagement we'll get to meet and go into the details of what this requirements mean and how you would apply them. There will be different things to different industries, of course, depending on the size and risks that you or products that you deal with. But the first and foremost criteria is your compliance with customs requirements. Customs here does not mean revenue services. It means all the regulatory bodies that are involved in the movement of goods. Then the companies that are involved need to have a satisfactory system of managing their records. Commercial records are important for us to gauge whether you are doing the right thing or not, and whether you are meeting your obligations as a company. Now, for you to be able to know whether you are meeting those regulatory requirements or not, you need to have records thereof. And that is your system, your way of dealing with the operations, which you need to prove. And third is whether the company is viable. This does not necessarily mean having a lot of money in the bank. It's more about your asset base, whether you can sustain your company beyond certain limits. We would not, as a revenue administrator or as the government, want to get involved with the companies who will be here today and gone tomorrow. It would be ideal in terms of the purpose of the program to be consistent in how we deal with businesses. And the financial muscle for the companies plays a bigger role as well. And the second or the last part would be the criteria, would be the safety and security standards. Each of the companies have their own way of dealing with the business. You have your own risks in the businesses. Now, what are those risks and how do you manage them? This is the elements that we're looking at. We are looking at personnel aspects. As your cargo moves, how do you deal with the people that you are employing to make sure that there's no theft? That's a security and safety issue in itself. And those that are handling cargo, how do you deal with them? There's also trucks, conveyances that you deal with. How do they manage risks as they move the goods across? Then there's your partners, your suppliers, and everybody that we deal with. Of critical importance, I think, is the clearing agents. Those are your key partners also, besides your suppliers. Those, how they behave and how they deal with business also impacts you. And as discussed earlier, you were told that this is the chain of supply from origin of the goods to the destination. If your goods are moving from Lesotho to South Africa, who you take the products to matter. And whether South Africa would facilitate your transaction when it moves across would depend on the risk your supplier would then, or the importer would have on the south side. So it's both sides. That's why the trading partners become a key role to know what safety and security standards the companies meet. There are certain conditions that we have put in line with the safe framework of standards, the WCO framework of standards, to facilitate and ensure secure movement of goods. One of them is that this is a voluntary program. Nobody's obliged to join. You join in partnership with us to say, I'm willing to do the right thing and I'm here. So you have to come on board willingly. And the criteria I just described is quite flexible because no one in industry or no one company is the same as the other. So it stays the same, but then it can be tailored to the companies, depending on the business models they use. And the companies that can be involved need to be in operation for several years. The reason for this is because we need to go back in 3 years to look at how you've been accessing the transacting, and then make a judgment on that data to say whether you've been operating above board or not. If it's a new company, it is not completely off the charts, but you need to prove that you can meet the compliance requirements that are put in place, and will have to go through some certain approvals. Then the companies need to be of high compliance, and as discussed, you need to have some security measures in place to address some of the risks involved in your business or businesses. Now, we looked at the industry benefits to participating in the program, drawing lessons from over 100 global AEO programs that the director spoke about. One of those is that it improves efficiency. For companies, time is of essence. Now, for you to be able to know that the products will reach where they need to be at the time that you intend to, you need to know that you can predict the movement to some extent. So if you are being facilitated from one end to the other, you can pretty much estimate your time for you to deliver the goods and actually be able to do that. the predictability and the transparency of the program gives you the companies that. Then there's the expedited shipping of the cargo, which is implied, but most importantly, because of the security elements implied or expected from participating in the program, you private sectors or businesses will be able to identify where you're losing products or there's loss or theft within your own companies because of participating in the program. What it does, from some of the experience we have listened to, is that you get to understand your own businesses better than right now you are, because the level of scrutiny that is being provided takes you to all the regulatory requirements we have, and it takes you to align those requirements to your commercial processes. So wherever the business is blindsided in terms of where there are problems, then you're able to, they come to the front for you to address. So it's a benefit for you because it protects your assets somehow. Then there's the increased security. I will not go into all of those. But then perhaps one key one is that the branding part plays a key role, because once you are accredited as certified as a trusted trader in Lesotho, and you get to be recognized as such, then your brand gains value. And the SACU has developed a new branding as a SACU for our regional program. So we'll find ways for national, regional to harmonize those two. For now, I think we have the Lesotho one over there. Now, going into the practical side of things, for our program, we haven't been able to measure the impact fully yet for our 10 accredited clients so far. But when we look at the performance measures or indexes that are used globally, especially the World Bank rankings, they give us an indication of where the program has taken place and has been implemented and what it means, that is, it has meant for the businesses that have been there. And of the 75 WCO members that have been implementing the program, it was established that 66 of those companies that, or at least countries that had the program, were ranked higher in terms of the logistical index. And that is both for the country and the customs administrations that are involved. And the ease of doing business also improved, and the trading across border index improves. That means we become a bit more competitive, as it was earlier discussed. Now, taking it closer to home to the East African country, they've had it for a while now, and it's at the regional level. Now, some of the companies that have been there, 88 of them, were said to have had contributed about 9% to the regional trade. And if we are talking about intra-regional trade improvements in terms of how we do between each other, then the program plays a key role. And at this stage, is a benefit that is not on offer, but the inspections to some extent are being facilitated. Then that will talk to the facilitated clearance, which we are yet to see traction on. And we signed the mutual recognition arrangement in December, a bilateral one with South Africa. Most of our trade is with South Africa, as you are aware. Now, when we were selling the program to the private sector, especially to the exporters, they were not interested. One of the reasons was because during the movement of cargo, they faced a lot of hurdles on the South African side of the border. So for the program to add value, it needed to have facilitation from end to end, at least up to the port. Now, we didn't have the mutual arrangement then, but that gave them a motivation to actually getting into the negotiations with South Africa, while the regional arrangement is being negotiated as well. And that was signed in December. So at least now we're working on the implementation mechanisms in terms of how we get to deliver that within our existing systems. So to be certified, there's a process. You need to apply into the program. We say it's voluntary. So that means you need to come up and say, I'm interested. And for us to know if you are interested, is for you to apply into it. And there will be a presentation later in the program that will show you how you get to apply. But after the application, the criteria discussed, you assess yourself in terms of whether you meet the criteria or not. Then you submit what you think with the supporting documents. And will come as the revenue services to look at the details and validate the information you have and assess certain risks that we need to be looking at and agree with you whether you do qualify or not. And then award you the certificate. Now, after the awarding of the certificate, which will then give you access to facilitation in the clearance process, we'll monitor your transactions. That means we get off your back a little bit, let you do your business, but we monitor so that if there are any issues that come up, we are able to give you feedback and address, especially because as you look at the movement of cargo, there are a number of partners involved, clearing agents, transporters, your employees. There's a lot that can happen in between. So since it's a partnership, we will be sharing information. If you have information to share with us in terms of what is happening in the company that you need to change, you inform us. If we find some discrepancies on our side, we inform you and we address the issues concurrently and together. Then we revalidate where necessary. So we have monitoring aspect that may lead to suspension in cases where there are serious infringements, and also to cancellation of the status if necessary. Okay, we offer two kinds of certifications. One is the level 1 accreditation. The preferred trader program is going to be done away with. We just kept it here so that most people knew the preferred trader program. They didn't understand what the AEO is. So we had been running with them concurrently, but I think following this consultation, we are going to do away with the preferred trader program, but we'll maintain the AEO compliance language in terms of the agreed regional naming convention. And we have that level of, which is just focusing on your compliance. This is just looking at the regulations, how you meet them, just for us and the other agencies, for your goods to move. And it's looking at just importers and exporters for now. And the level 2 accreditation takes into account the safety and security aspects, movement of cargo, combined with the compliance aspects. And this is where we are looking at the broader scope of the participants in your supply chain. And it would involve the beneficiation or facilitation of benefits, not just from the Lesotho side, also on the South African side. Once the regional arrangement is signed, then it means regional wide. Okay, so how we have been implementing the program as a region takes cognizance of the safe framework of standards to facilitate secure movement of cargo. There are 4 elements that have been we're working on within the 3 pillars. Now the 3 pillars means we collaborate and cooperate as customs to customs administrations. We cooperate with businesses in terms of aligning our regulatory environment with the commercial processes, and we also collaborate with the other agencies who also take part in terms of what is being on offer. Otherwise, it will not make sense for you to be in the program and the other agencies are not part, because they will stop you. So there are certain standards that we need to meet together as the like a 3-legged pod, Yamasuthu. So as we look at those aspects, standards, the key ones is risk management. We need to integrate the risk management frameworks, and so that they talk to you. You don't need to be able to be validated too many times. We do it once, but we look at all aspects of the different partners. Then there is electronic advanced information. We're working towards information before you arrive. That has started already within the pre-clearance process that is already in place through the customs systems. So that would continue, so that we share even more than what the declarations offer. Then stays the outward inspections. This will require some investment in infrastructure for inspection, like inspection house. That is the future, but for now, we can agree. And I think as we speak, some of our clients that are moving goods across the border can agree that within the coordinated Lesotho border management strategy, there is already an arrangement to have inspections done commonly by all the agencies. That's already a leverage for inspections, but we can move them outside of the border area because of the infrastructure constraints. And then there is partnership with trade for you to come on board. Some of the information, the commercial side of the business, we don't know. You would know it better, especially when we look at industries. Now, if we partner, you'll be able to share some of the knowledge, and we co-create what needs to be controls and how we manage these risks, and also so we are able to meet your needs as far as the cross-border movement of cargo is concerned. So I think the outcome basically for the program at the national level is for us to help each other facilitate your transactions and minimize costs and the time that you spend at the borders, and also share risks, and of course trying to improve our border management controls. And it is a partnership that we'd like to see happening between us as customs administrations or revenue services Lesotho, our government agencies, and the business at large. So this is a call, ladies and gentlemen, for us to say, from us, to say we are ready and we would like to work with you. We hope you will be joining us in this journey, especially now that the call has been made to try to improve our economy through export-led growth. And that would mean we need to be tapping into the regional value chains and the global value chains. And one of the many ways we can do that is actually to improve our efficiencies of our processes, which has been found out to be quite a constraint for trade generally. So thank you.
Coming to you from the National University of Lesotho, and I'm here representing the National University of Lesotho World Trade Organization Chair. So I'll start with what is the WTO Chair. It is a WTO-supported program that is being run at the National University of Lesotho between all of the different faculties. And what we do is that we're engaged in research, in building curriculum, as well as in conducting outreach activities that are related to international trade. Hence our interest in joining the program today. We have been asked to talk about the potential for the AEO program to assist economic integration as well as the private sector, the upliftment of the private sector in Lesotho. What is our take on the program? And before I talk about economic integration or the impacts on economic integration, I always like to start with where does economic integration come from? Where does the African regional integration agenda come from? Because as much as we're talking about this program now, this is not the beginning of a new thing. This is the culmination of years and years and years of a vision that Africans have had since before there were even independent states. So the idea of having economic integration on the continent, as I said, started even with liberation struggles, where the African leaders were saying that they want political freedom. After political freedom must come economic freedom, and that economic freedom can only happen in unity, that only in collective prosperity can we have individual prosperity. So I just want us to say, as much as we've said we're quite far behind, what we are living is actually a dream of our forefathers. And therefore what we are dreaming is also going to be realized. And we as the NUL WTO Chair believe that this is a very important initiative to advance African economic integration. So once the liberation fighters had become leaders of independent states, the first thing that they did was to enter into various agreements that were trying to liberalize trade and that were trying to facilitate trade. Starting from the then 1963 Charter of the OAU, going to the Lagos Plan, the Abuja Treaty, and now the current AFCFTA. So even the AFCFTA is a milestone on this journey that we have been on towards economic integration so that we can be prosperous, resilient, truly independent nations. Because once, as Ndete Khasibe said, you are unable to feed yourself, you are unable to medicate yourself, your independence is really very fragile. If we look at the agreements that Lesotho participates in that speak to economic integration, we can mention these. There's the SACU agreement, which speaks to trade facilitation and transit trade, the SADC protocol on trade and goods, the AFCFTA protocol on trade and goods. We're also parties to the WTO trade facilitation agreement and also to several WCO instruments. The one that is most relevant for today would be the Kyoto Protocol. So all of these agreements, we've been participating in them, hoping that we're going to experience liberalized trade, facilitated trade. If we look at the SADC protocol on trade, it has various integration milestones that it refers to. So economic integration is not an event. Economic integration is a process. Over time, what we expect is to see a deepening level of integration and a wider range of integration. So the SADC protocol on trade in goods mentioned that SADC would become a free trade area by 2008. And indeed, the free trade area was launched. The idea was to go on to becoming a customs union by 2010, a common market with free movement of persons across the SADC region by 2015, a monetary union by 2016, and to adopt a single currency by 2018. We are now in 2023, so we can see that these integration milestones have not been met. Also, if we look at what is happening with the rates of trade, I will not belabor this because Ndete Khasibe has also talked about it, that the rates of trade in Africa are very low, only accounting for on average about 16%, depending on which statistics you look at. But if you look at other regions in Europe, almost 70% of their trade happens amongst the European countries. If we look at Asia, about 53%, and North America, about 47%. This 16% is not consistent across the African continent. We have some regions that are doing better than other regions. For instance, if we look at SADC, approximately 32.12% of our trade was between other SADC countries, as illustrated by this visual from TRALAC from 2021. But if you look at other regions, for instance, the AMU is only standing at 5.4 and ECAS is standing at 5.9%. But if we look at comparatively, we're not doing very well as a region in terms of trading amongst ourselves. And what are some of the challenges? Why are we not trading amongst ourselves? And again, I will not belabor it because we've already mentioned some of these issues. The problem that we are not producing the products that we need. If we look at African economies and how they're structured, they tend to be structured to produce for the West. So the West says, we want cut flowers, we want cocoa, we want coffee, we want tea. And if we look at what it is that we're producing those things for the West. We need to now change and shift our mindsets to say, what does the African continent need? And start to gear our production towards the needs of the continent. If we're producing what others need on the continent, then we'll be able to free up trade amongst ourselves. And of course, some of the other issues that have been mentioned, improving our productivity, improving our competitiveness, improving the supportive policy, legal environment, the institutions that are meant to facilitate trade. All of these need to be done. Also, if we look at the types of businesses that we have on the continent, the large level of informality, the micro and the small and medium enterprises, that are not operating at the sufficient scale for us to have realizable, significant trade. These are a lot of challenges for Milibund that we have to overcome before we can see improved rates of trade. But as dire as the situation is, this program, the NAL WTO chair believes, is a very important component that is going to help to start assisting us to turn this around. We believe that the AEO program is going to be beneficial for traders. We've talked about the cost-cutting benefits for the traders from the efficiencies. It's going to support the revenue services in the mandate of facilitating trade while ensuring security of the international supply chain. We've also said that there could be revenue benefits generally for the country, as well as assisting us to create those linkages with the other countries in SACU because of it being a SACU project. The challenges for the private sector to take up this business have also been mentioned. That if we say that many of our businesses are actually small enterprises, and the processes for AEO participation can sometimes be quite arduous. They can also be quite costly. They can be intimidating for smaller businesses that can be intimidated by some of these programs, believing that it is only for the larger businesses. So participating in the program, maintaining your compliance within the program has cost implications that may be of significant consequence to smaller and medium enterprises. So how do we assist the private sector? And I'm very happy because I've heard the likes of Mema Tabo saying that the RSL is already aware of some of these things that they need to do to assist the private sector. The first one we talked about was transparency and engagement. LCCI saying nothing for us without us says this. We must engage the private sector. We must ensure that they know about the program. They feel at ease in participating in the program. They understand all of the steps that are required for them to participate. Beyond just advocacy, we need to capacitate the private sector, as Mensebeng said. Don't only come to us for compliance, help us to be compliant. So having the trainings for the private sector so that they can be able to have the requisite compliance is also very important. And this is not something that RSL has to do by itself. RSL has already said that they partner with the likes of BEDCO. I know that there's also EMs from my own university that assist in building the capacity of the private sector, conducting trainings for them that are very practical, that will help them to get their houses in order so that they can effectively participate in the scheme. We cannot forget special consideration for women enterprises and for youth-led enterprises. These are demographics that struggle to sometimes plug into the formal economy and to be able to benefit from these programs. So whatever we do, we must have special consideration for these groups. Partnership has also been mentioned, and we have heard that RSL has been engaging with other government agencies. We're here engaging with the private sector today. I also implore that academia should not be left behind. As we said, the NUL chair is here to conduct research, to build curriculum, to undertake advocacy. All of these we can do in partnership with RSL in support of the program. Other countries, as I've seen, have established a profession of AEO consultants. Maybe that is something that someone can go on into inside the context of Lesotho, to become very knowledgeable on the requirements and on the steps so that you can train companies to review their compliance and to be able to meet the standards of the program. There is also software that I'm aware of that is available in other countries that assists the private sector to be able to benefit from such projects. We have burgeoning ITC specialists here in the country. Why can they not also come up with a very handy app that the private sector can be able to use that is in language appropriate so that they can support their ability to participate in the program. And I have 2 minutes ahead just to take the last takeaway. The last takeaway is that the AEO program is not going to be the key to all of these challenges, the dire challenges that we've talked about. facing Lesotho as a country or SACU as a region. However, we as the NAL WTO chair see it as being a very important piece of the puzzle. And therefore, we are in support of the AEO program. We look forward to being invited again a year or two from now to take stock of what has happened, and we believe that it is going to be one of the major components or programs that are going to help the private sector and Lesotho's economy at large. I thank you so much for your attention.
It's been a very wonderful session today. The theme you will have noted says experience hassle-free trade as an authorized economic operator. I'm here to pass a vote of thanks, so I must ensure that you also experience hassle-free passage to the lunch that has been prepared for you. So that I don't take too long. To pass a vote of thanks, first and foremost to SACU and the SACU Secretariat led by Mbate and the SACU officials who have played a coordinating and supporting role in us being able to host this Lesotho chapter of the AEO Awareness Program. So thank you to them. Thank you to the Revenue Services Lesotho team, management and staff led by our Commissioner Client Services, Nematabo Mboko, who have been here over the last 3 days. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our AEO operators in the private sector who are here, and the many more that will join. Thank you to the media. Thank you to all who have been present here today. I do hope that this session today will be a seminal moment in the years to come when one day we say as Lesotho, size 1.6 one day we will be saying, I do hope that we'll look back on this session and say that is what projected us to where we are going. So thank you very much once again, and let's go and enjoy our lunch, and let's go forth and make this AEO program a success in the region and make us a force as SACU to compete in Africa. Thank you very much.